How's it going today? I might just pop that back a little bit further. I've gotten back into the debates again, as I do, on good old Facey Bookie. Unbelievable. The amount of people who call themselves flat earthers, which means that you've come to some realisation somewhere along the line. I'm hoping it's not simply because of some biblical belief either. Oh, you're way up. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The earth is not flat as a result of something said in the Bible. I mean, it's good if you have your beliefs in whatever books you find pleasing that are full of knowledge. Most books have lots of knowledge in them. Even fiction books, they can actually have some of the greatest truths within them. So, by all means, read your books. I find the Bible bloody boring myself. I've got no interest in reading it. I think it's been doctored throughout the centuries. It's been put together for a king, for crying out loud. An English king, King James. That's what's called the King James version of the Bible, because it had to be approved for him. They cut out so much stuff, like all these references to fiery chariots, for example. All the references to the sacredness of the feminine, the Mother Earth. This is what, to me, Flat Earth is all about, is the appreciation and recognition of the sacred Mother Earth, the infinite Mother. When you look for a description for God, for example, all the things that fit the infinite Mother Earth explain God. She gives us everything. Our bodies come from her, our bodies return to her. The air we breathe is her breath. The water we drink is her blood. When we eat her fruits, we are eating her body. This is what Christ was teaching us about. Take this flesh and or take this bread and eat it. This is my body. This is the Mother Earth, the living Mother Earth. And the bread that they were eating back then isn't ground up to get the flour out of it. It's the whole grain is soaked. It's soaked overnight, and then it's usually sprouted for at least a day or two. The soaking and the sprouting is the quickening, the life, the living bread of the living God. And then it is briefly mashed into a bit of a flat cake and baked in the sun. So the living seeds are still absorbing sunlight, turning it into chlorophyll. So when you're eating that type of living bread, that is how you are getting life energy from the Mother and the Father, the Son. The Son as the Father does sound a bit funny, doesn't it? But that's what the Son of God is. It's of God. Now, getting back to the moon, now this is the one where everybody is still trying to say that the moon produces its own light. It is its own light source. It does not reflect sunlight. Now think about the most obvious thing you can think of, such as a hot footpath baking in the sun. Do you feel the heat coming off that footpath even when your foot is just an inch above it? Probably just starting to feel the warmth. But as soon as you put your foot on it, you feel instantly just how hot it is. Heat does not propagate very well just through air. It's a very, very poor heat conductor. So when you're talking about a moon possibly hundreds of miles away, okay, that's as far as I think it is. I don't think it's more than maybe even only 100 miles, 150. Who knows? We don't know because we can't measure it. We've never been there. And not everything is as it appears. In fact, I have seen recently some high altitude balloon footage where you can see the moon, and it does appear to get much, much smaller as it's distant, which kind of lends itself to the fact that the atmosphere may well magnify it, acting like a lens, or it may actually be on the other side of a lens, and as we get closer to it, it appears to recede. There is so much unknown, and I will be putting up another video. I'll make another rant shortly, really, which I'll call Thatcher's Law of Perspective number 5. And if you're looking for 3, don't. Long story. I'm not going into it. The thing is, the moon reflects sunlight. Now, it doesn't reflect like a mirror. That is a terrible word for what it is actually doing. It's just illuminated by it, like anything illuminated by the sun. Sometimes you've got a distant mountain which is high enough to be illuminated by the sun after the sun has set from your view. Do you expect to feel heat coming from that mountain? Of course not. Why would you expect it to come from the moon? Are you saying that the mountain is self-illuminating because it's lit while nothing else is? The moon is up so high that it is always lit by the sun. And it works by being on a particular angle because it takes 50 minutes longer every day to appear, 50 minutes longer to go around us than the sun does. So either it's on a bigger circle, or it's further away, or it just goes a bit slower than the sun. 50 minutes a day, that's nearly an entire hour difference. It always appears full when it rises at the time the sun sets from our local vantage point. Now this can be give or take a little bit, within the 50-minute spectrum, because the moon is technically only full for a split second. That's just the nature of spherical things being illuminated. The minute that it's full, it's still moving just such a tiny amount that is no longer full, but for all intents and purposes it's full for a good 2 days. That's how well it appears. In fact, if not 3 days, a day either side of the full moon plus the full moon. So that is why if you go outside an hour before sunset, you'll still call that daytime. You don't think, oh, it's nearly dark, it's an hour to go before the sun sets. The moon can still be fully visible in the sky at that time and be so close to full that you'll think you are seeing a full moon in daytime, but you are not. There's only one night of the month that the moon appears all night long and not in daytime is when it's full, and that's because the sun and moon are opposite each other. And from our perspective down below, looking up, you've got to keep remembering everything is up, even if it looks to be on the horizon. Just like these lines you can see around the corners of buildings, they're all parallel lines. How are they making this V if they're parallel? That's just perspective. And that's why parallel lines of things like the sun and moon will look as though they're different heights, but they're not. They're all the same height. All this white stuff around me is the same height, except for the beam, of course, it's about this much lower, but it's still following a parallel line. So the moon can often appear to be much higher than the sun during the daytime, and you will question, why can it be making the light at that angle if the sun is down there? The sun is not down there. It is still up there parallel. And I'm even suspecting the moon is higher than the sun, hence why when we see the full moon, we see the entire bottom half of it illuminated by the sun. That is what we are all looking at. That's all we ever see of the moon, is the bottom half of the moon. The top half, it's too high. We cannot see it. It doesn't matter how distant it is, you're not going to see it from a different angle because it is too high. Unless you went way up high, you might start to see part of the side of the moon. If, for example, we were able to land on the moon, we'd have to go on the top, which is what we call the dark side, the side we never see from Earth, because you can't land on the bottom of a ball or the side of a ball. You can land on top of a ball. That's the only way you can be on a sphere, is by being on top. That's why the Earth must be flat, because surely you don't believe everybody all around the globe is on top all at once. It's just a logical fallacy. It's very, very basic. If you believe that, you're brainwashed. You are mass hypnotized in this concept. Now, I guess the flat earthers, many of them like to think they are somewhat special, that they've discovered something when it comes to the moon. We know things in moonlight cool down faster than things in moon shade. I've described that plenty of times before. I'll do it again now for you to save you the hassle of having to look it up. What happens at night, the sun during the day has heated the atmosphere. It is constant direct source of heat, and it heats everything just as quickly, but heat always rises. That's why during the daytime it'll stay hot, because you're getting the direct source of light and heat to be warm. As soon as the sun goes down, it starts cooling quite quickly. Now, the ground is still radiating a certain amount of heat, and depends on the ambient temperature. There's a lot of variables when it comes to measuring this, but let's just assume it's a normal mid-season, mid-spring, 20 degrees outside during the day, or 25 even, let's say, which it probably is about now anyway, and this is midwinter here, 25 Celsius. As soon as the sun goes down, because it is winter here, it will cool down very rapidly to below 10 degrees. In the middle of, say, a milder season, let's just say it cools down to 15 degrees. That is because heat naturally rises. Now, air currents also have a way of going with the flow. All vortex energy basically says, a good example is the Dyson bladeless fan. I've even got a pulled apart one right here actually, which I'm doing experiments with. This is a cheap Chinese copy made of plastic. But basically what happens is this ring down here, that goes around here, it shoots out compressed air basically. And as this air flows through, it grabs air from behind and surrounding it. And so you actually get a stronger air current going through than what comes out this little ring. And that is what all air naturally does. As soon as it gets some sort of momentum, it grabs the surrounding air and moves that with it as well. So when we're talking now about thermal energy, warm air rising, it sort of grabs the surrounding air and rises as well. Now if you bring the moon into the equation, when it's dark and cooling down, the moon has a slight amount of heat. Yes, you can feel it if you go out on a very cold night, especially if there's clouds passing by. That's the best way, but you could possibly use a tree or something to block it. And if you close your eyes, you'll feel it more distinctly, but you don't have to close your eyes, of course. But if you do, you become very aware of your surroundings. And as the cloud passes by, you will feel this beautiful, gentle warmth come across your face, and you'll know the cloud has passed with your eyes shut just by the temperature, and you'll feel a light change through your eyelids too, of course. But so what is happening is the moon putting this small amount of heat onto things in the moonlight. It is actually speeding up the warming process, so it actually draws the heat out faster. I call it the evaporative effect. It evaporates the warmth out of something faster, causing more cool air to rush in to fill its place, cooling it down even faster again than something that is in the moon's shade. It is not saying that the moonlight is a cooling light. That is not how any light works. All light produces some amount of heat. The moon's light is a very gentle light. It's the silver light as opposed to the golden sun. But you would not expect any object, least of all the moon, to mimic sunlight just because it's lit by the sun. It's not a freaking mirror. Now, if you want to know what it is, I'm telling you, it's an artificial satellite. It's possibly the only natural satellite, as they like to call it, but it is artificial. I've got many theories. I even strongly suspect the Grand Canyon itself may have been the mining quarry where these giants of long ago mined the materials to make it. Now I think it's full of helium, possibly, maybe hydrogen. Hydrogen is actually easy to make with electrolysis. You just need, you can make your own hydrogen cell quite simply with stainless steel plates inside of a sealed chamber, putting electric currents in one side and out the other. You'll produce hydrogen out of plain water. In fact, I think salt water works even better. So there's no reason at all why the moon could not be either full of helium or hydrogen, which is what's keeping it aloft. And it's a very clever design. Like, this is made long, long ago. We're only just starting to get close to understanding the technologies that these ancients have had. In fact, there's a lot of technology already in existence which we are privy to the slow release of. If you look into that, it makes a lot of economic sense. Everybody wants the latest phone, for example, so they're not going to give you the latest, greatest, best one right now, today, are they? No, they're going to roll them out a bit at a time, a bit at a time. I reckon they've had this technology and stuff for possibly centuries. Yeah, I know. They've got flying vehicles. You can go out any night around here, especially where we've got beautiful clear skies, any night of the year, and when you stop and look, you will see all sorts of lights. Now, they call them satellites, but these things, they're moving way too fast and way too much in the wrong directions. I mean, I can understand if Earth is spinning and we have satellites orbiting us, they would have to follow a more or less natural path like the sun and moon, because it's said that they rise and set due to our axial rotation. So should satellites. They nearly all be going from the east to the west. For them to be going north, south and every other direction doesn't make sense if they're orbiting us, if they're falling around us due to our axial rotation. I mean, it's impossible to do anyway, because we all know that the speed of the Earth going 66,600 miles per hour just around the sun. You know, we go 1.6 million miles a day to go 1 degree around the sun. How are these satellites keeping up with that, plus staying geostationary? That means we're heading towards them at that ridiculously fast speed at one point, and we're going away from them at the other point. So we're sort of pushing them away. You know, it doesn't make any sense that there could be satellites. The moon, however, makes perfect sense over a flat, stationary Earth. And it can explain the tides by working in conjunction with the sun. They are sort of creating this push and pull effect against each other, which has an electromagnetic force against the oceans, like a negative force of a magnet. It's not pulling the oceans around, it's actually pushing it around like a giant plate type of thing. That's why we get 2 tides a day, not 1. If the moon's gravity was pulling the oceans around, there'd be 1 tide a day. It'd be the same tide every day, because the moon's mass never changes, so its gravity never changes, so all tides would be more or less equal, you know, apart from estuaries and so forth where you've got a bit more time for ebb and flow. But generally speaking, the entire oceans would all be 1 tide and the same tidal difference every day. But we have the moon, we've got 2 different tides. I'm getting tired of talking. I'm going to have a beer and sing a song. So that's the end of this video. Catch you later. I'm out of here. See ya.